All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, and we are live here on Facebook. And let's bring my camera back in. Hey, everybody. Star Trek 2009 is over and has been since, 2009. But we are just getting started here on Live Long and Podcast. I'm Dave Mader coming at you with Star Trek TV and movie reviews, and we're here streaming live on Facebook at Live Long and Podcast. You may also be watching us on YouTube channel or listening to audio. Welcome to everybody. We're here to talk about the 11th Star Trek movie, Star Trek 2009. It wasn't actually called Star Trek 2009. It was just released in 2009. It was just 2009.
Well, it's only movie called Star Trek. None of the other movies are just called Star Trek.
Not even Star Trek 1. It's just that's Star Trek the motion picture. So this stands apart from that in title. And I'm not joined by
Star
Jane
Trek the
today.
Snorefest. Anyway.
As Jane's
What are we doing here?
I'm talking. I'm talking. Here, we got Star Trek 2009 to talk about. There we go. All right. Because I have the movie going on in the background just for, aesthetics. All right. So, hey, let's introduce our panel today. So first, we got Jeff Mader. How you doing, Jeff?
Swell.
Here in the bottom left-hand corner, we got Jody Simpson. How you doing, Jody?
I'm doing.
And then Kevin Millard here in the bottom right-hand corner. How you doing, Kevin?
Also swell.
It is June 13th, 2020, and you're here to talk about Star Trek 2009. This was the reboot. This was the new continuation. This was largely the result of, yes, I'm trying not to be distracted by Jeff's.
It's kind of hard not to.
It's hard not to.
I wasn't listening to you, Dave. I was just watching Jeff.
I was getting nauseous watching his.
It's kind of like a metaphor for this movie. When people are talking, not so interesting. When things are moving,
okay.
I'll show you the best metaphor for this entire thing. Lens flare. Lens flare. Lens flare. Lens flare. Lens flare.
Galore. J.J. Abrams here. Maybe is this peak Abrams? This is before he did Star Wars, and a lot of people feel like he made Star Trek too much like Star Wars just to prove he could do Star Wars, and then of course got Star Wars.
Sucked at that too.
Yeah, and
if that's what you're going for, he definitely hit it.
Right, yeah. And this is 7 years after the last Star Trek movie that we just did last week, which was Star Trek Nemesis. So there was quite a bit of a gap here. Star Trek. Enterprise, it ended about 4 years before this, and so there was kind of like this limbo period where Star Trek, we didn't know if it was going to come back, if there was going to be a new show. CBS and Viacom got split out, and then there was all these rights issues, and so the story goes that I guess CBS had the rights to make the movie, but they licensed it back to Paramount or something like that.
I fear we're getting really close to fun facts with Jeff.
We're getting close, but the reason, so they wanted something new. They wanted to be a new, fresh take to Star Trek. I think they felt like Star Trek had gone stale after all that. We talked about the fatigue that had been going on in the franchise, and I think it was also the fact that they just wanted to make it was corporate America and money and everything else that kind of led to this in rights. And so we got this: Chris Pine as Captain Kirk and Zachary Quinto here as a new version of Spock, and I think they were really trying to straddle this line of how do we keep the hardcore Star Trek fans, how do we bring them back to this movie and that they'll appreciate this new version that we're creating, but also how do we kind of sort of bring in mainstream America, if you will, or mainstream global audience that's going to want to go see this as a popcorn movie. And of the 3 movies that feature this cast, this new timeline, this stands apart from the main Star Trek continuity, other than the fact that it involves Spock and some events from the main continuity. That they were kind of trying to start this over. They felt like Star Trek was too niche now, and I think they've always seen it as this property that can be Star Wars. And I'm not sure that it is, but this comes close in a lot of ways. So let's go around the panel. Let's talk about Jody. I know you're not a fan of the lens flare.
No, that's why I'm wearing sunglasses.
But what would you say is your favorite part of this movie?
There's some good scenes. There's a lot of little nostalgia hints too to people who are fans of the original series, stuff like that. My favorite part of this entire movie is still Bones. Bones is by far the best character in this movie, bar none. Spot on by Carl Urban, I believe it is.
Carl Urban.
So,
New Zealand's own?
Overall, New Zealand's own, yes. So it's It's a decent movie. I think it went a little too far on the lens flare for sure. Now that I'm thinking about it, this whole Star Trek Star Wars thing definitely seems to make sense. He was making a Star Wars movie. This makes perfect sense now. I never even thought of this. But past that, yeah, it's not bad. There's some casting that I definitely don't agree with, but overall, I like Kirk. Kirk definitely is well done by Pine, but Spock and Uhura, I'm not a fan of, and as I've mentioned that previous.
So,
but overall, I think it's a good movie. It's very inviting. People who aren't, massively into the series or know much about it will still enjoy the movie. It's pretty easy to follow for somebody who doesn't know everything about Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. And Kevin, and sort of your take on this film is it sort of fits into Star Trek?
Well, the same as Jody. I think they nailed the key, or Carl Urban just nailed Bones. Like,
he's beautiful. He's beautiful.
Amazing.
He gives it a little bit more of an update. Like you don't feel like he's some old asshole, but he still has that asshole while still being polite.
Yeah, it's perfect casting that. But I also I do like this is if you're going to do a prequel, and you know my hatred for prequels.
Yes.
If you're going to do it, this is how you do it.
For sure.
I remember coming out of this movie and being excited and being like, I like this new reboot. I like that they tied it in, but then changed it to a different timeline so they can.
Yeah, and that it doesn't erase what has come before.
Yes.
It stands apart. That was the good compromise that they found here, I think. I felt the same way coming out of the film.
Was excellent,
11 years ago. Whereas I was like, well, they didn't undo everything I've been a fan of for the last, my
No, and it would be interesting to see how things would change based on what events happen in this new timeline. I thought it was a really good idea.
Tons of potential here.
Yes.
But then we'll see how it plays out over the next two films.
Shit the bed after this, but yeah.
And Jeff, so 2009 Star Trek, Chris Pine, all these new actors playing these iconic roles. Some of them better than others. But they were all told to kind of make their performances their own. Like no one here is trying to do an impersonation of William Shatner, for instance, or anything else.
No.
Really?
Pine definitely accents it a bit.
I think Pine is the.
I disagree with that. I think they're definitely doing impersonations of the character.
In a lot of scenarios, I think they are. Yeah.
I don't think that Zoe Saldana's Uhura is anything like Nichelle Nichols' Uhura.
No, she's definitely doing her own thing.
But this is my problem: is some of them are being faithful to the original character.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do an impersonation of William Shatner. But but Chris Pine he's faithful to the character that is James T. Kirk.
Yes. The same mannerisms and stuff like that. Same humor.
Uhura and Scotty do not. Those two specifically are not consistent with the characters that we know from the movies and the original TV show.
And even Spock, this version of Spock is very different.
He's at least trying to be like Spock, though. Like he's
failing miserably.
Absolutely. But he's at least attempting to be like Spock, like Leonard Nimoy.
There are a couple moments in the movie where I believe Zachary Quinto's performance as Spock, and there are moments where I just don't. And it gets worse as this franchise kind of goes on. He becomes the weakest link. I have a feeling like Zachary Quinto didn't want to do this role after this movie. I think like this was his thing. Back then,
he doesn't feel good in the other movies. That's for sure.
When they made this movie, he was really high on Heroes. He had been playing this villain Siler on Heroes. He was really big, and he was also in American Horror Story Asylum, which he was, that was a big role for him too.
You have to understand though too that it is hard to reinvent such a beloved character. Like Spock is from the original series. Spock is who everybody loves. Like he's so popular. And he's
probably the hardest thing to do is try to take on that role again, to try to inherit it.
To be the first person to do that role since Leonard Nimoy, and that's a hard thing to do.
Well, and I don't really like those two characters like Uhura and Spock in this movie, but I don't feel that it's the fault of the actors at all. I think they did what they were supposed to do. I just don't think they were well written. There's a lot of dialogue in this movie that you wouldn't really think Spock would get into.
I like Uhura.
Like that.
I like Uhura. I just because I don't really.
I think I would like her better. Yeah, I think I'd like her better if she wasn't so aligned to Spock in this movie.
The romance between them.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, it falls totally flat. It's,
Like I understand them having a love interest. I get that, but it's
These two don't have chemistry.
It would have been more interesting had like Spock had to bang Uhura because he was a Tom Far. Like that would have made more sense.
That would have been more interesting.
Yeah, that would have been more interesting. That would have been.
That would be
awkward with each other afterwards because he doesn't.
Oh yeah, like night after kind of thing. Yeah,
right.
Or banging someone you work with, same thing. Like all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is a bad idea.
Yeah,
like worse and regret. That'd be amazing.
I mean, I don't know. Unnecessary. Zachary Quinto wasn't the right actor to play this role. You guys could say all you want that, like, oh, it's a hard role to play, and it is. But so is Kirk, and Chris Pine pulls it off. Like, so
very well, actually. Yeah.
For me, it's the casting was not good for about half the people on the cast. Like, I feel like Kirk and Bones are perfect.
What about Chekhov?
Chekhov is fine, but his hair bothers me. His hair.
Well, his curly hair.
That's like something a Kevin would say.
As with every movie that he's in, Chris Hemsworth is the best part of this movie.
Chris Hemsworth.
Have you ever seen Men in Black International?
He's good at it too, but
I don't like him in this movie, to be honest with you. Just on the rewatch, on the rewatch of this, and I was watching that scene. I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel like
he comes in here to play George Kirk, and we never saw George Kirk in the original series.
Guys, we are seeing it through the rose-colored glasses of Marvel, and this is before Marvel. So you got to remember, he hasn't hit his stride yet. No, he's much funnier than now. He's way funnier now than he was back then.
What year did Thor come out? 2011.
2011. It's about 2 years after this. So he hadn't broken out as a big star yet. Chris Hemsworth was in fact, he looks quite a bit like Chris Pine.
Yes, he does.
A lot of people thought a lot of people thought that Chris Pine was playing both roles to that point.
Like he hadn't broken out because when I watched this movie, I didn't go, "Hey, it's Chris Hemsworth." I went, "Oh, there's that guy." Like,
this was a breakout thing for a lot of people. The only person, I don't know, was there really anybody that is already fairly broken out at this point?
From this cast, Chris Pine, not even really. He was not a huge star.
Of course, a little bit. Christopher Pike, obviously.
Bruce Greenwood in this movie. Winona Ryder is in this movie.
She's not a star anymore. She hasn't been a star in 30 years.
Yeah, that's relevant. She hasn't been a star in a movie since she was in a rom-com with fucking Adam Sandler.
Was Carl Urban well known?
Goes down.
Carl Urban had been in like kind of like
Lord of the Rings.
He was in Lord of the Rings, but he was also like in I think the Bourne Supremacy or the Bourne Identity is in one of them. I think it says Bourne Supremacy. Yeah, like he was in, but he was never like this major actor. He still kind of isn't. I mean, in Thor Ragnarok, he's like again like a side character, right? Like he's a good one, but he hasn't really been the star of a movie. I feel like Carl, and he should be. He's a great actor.
And Simon, well, no, have you seen Dredd, like the Judge Dredd movie?
I'll tell you, I've not actually. That wasn't bad at all. Way better than the Sylvester Stallone one.
Okay, and what about Chris or like what's his name? Simon Pegg as Scotty. Simon Pegg had done Shaun of the Dead and was.
Simon Pegg got this job because he's friends. That's it. He didn't even for my understanding, he didn't even audition for it. He was just given it.
J.J. Abrams had met him on.
Well, you'll
have to find it with fast facts. With
once again, you're ripping it right into.
Oh, am I ripping? Oh, sorry.
Okay, I don't want to jump the gun. Do you want to just talk about the movie, like scene by scene? Should. We can talk. So we kind of touched on the opening with Chris. Sorry, what's his name? Chris Hemsworth. As George Kirk, and this is 2230s roughly. This is just before, a couple months before Captain Kirk William is supposed to be born, like James T. Kirk, and this is his father's ship around that time, the Kelvin, which only has one nacelle, which I don't like, and it runs into the Narada.
Top and one in the bottom, and it was in the middle.
Yeah, it was like this. No, I don't know. It just I hate the ship is an ugly looking ship, but
it's okay. It's okay, Dave.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. It's only it gets blown up, so it's fine. And so normally in the Star Trek timeline that we know, that this never happened. So the ship would have went on its way, and Captain Kirk was born, and he grew up, and that's the William Shatner Kirk. So this is where the timeline diverges, because now this big Romulan monster, ugly-looking ship pops out and attacks the Kelvin right away. And and then we get Nero on screen, or I think no, it's the first officer. It's Nero's first officer who.
Yeah, you don't see Nero until Pike.
No, you see him. No, because there's this captain, Richard Robow. That's the actor who plays this captain.
Yeah, the weird looking dude.
Yeah, the weird looking dude. He goes over and he's the one who, and Nero stabs him in the heart, right when he takes the shuttle over to talk to them.
Oh yeah.
So that's where Nero first, like, I guess, says something. He goes, ah, right, and then he stabs.
You don't actually know who he is, though. They don't say.
He goes, is that your captain? Is that your captain over there? And this is where we meet Eric Bana, and they're looking for Ambassador Spock. He goes, I don't know Ambassador Spock. Then they start to go, what's the star date? And they realize they're in the past, and they're pissed off. They're mad. And then they just start attacking. So meanwhile, Chris Hemsworth as George Kirk has been left in command of the Kelvin. And
why are they mad that they're in the past?
Well, because they got sucked into a black hole.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So why?
When they reemerge, they realize they're not where they're supposed to be.
But like when the Enterprise went back in time in First Contact, they weren't like pissed off. Like they were like, fuck.
Well, they intentionally did that, though.
What?
They intentionally did that.
No, they followed the Borg cue.
Well, Nero is a madman bent for revenge. He was trying to kill Spock 5 seconds ago. Then he got sucked into the black hole, and now he's here. And so he's just pissed off because he wants revenge for what happened to his planet, and so he can't get it.
And it's Spock's fault.
Right, that he's in the past and could fix it.
Yeah.
Right, but you can't. This is not like anything they change here does not change what happens in the main timeline. This is like a alternate dimension, I guess.
Right,
at this point.
Kelvin timeline. Yeah.
Right, but they're back in because they change everything. But
it's like alternate 1984 and Back to the Future 2.
Right.
Right.
But so the Romulans come back though, and then they say, okay, in this world Romulus isn't destroyed. Why don't we, try
that from happening?
Prevent that?
It won't even happen for another 100 and something years, 150
right.
years.
Well, lots of time to prepare.
I don't know.
Tell somebody what's going to happen and have them avoid it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that Nero's just a villain who is he doesn't have a lot of reason to him. Clearly,
he was written like a Star Wars villain.
Yes,
where you know a little bit, but you don't know much about it, and you don't really care either.
He's got some wife he lost. Like I don't care.
He lost his family. Blah blah blah. His family got killed or something. Blah blah blah. Now he's angry. Right?
His whole planet did.
This is why you don't give Star Wars wannabes Star Trek. You give it to an actual fans of Star Trek.
It's a little questionable. And at these events, and
very weak in this.
So and Chris Hemsworth as George Kirk, like he's the one who does the big heroic, like he plunges the ship into the heart of the Romulan ship as this battle's continuing. And meanwhile, he's talking to his wife, who's played by Jennifer Morrison from House and some other shows. She's playing Kirk's mother. And so this is the other thing that Jane questioned this last night. She goes, so I don't understand. The Kelvin was attacked, and this forced her to go into labor, right? Earlier than she would have in the main timeline. So Kirk's born much earlier than he should have been. So instead of being like a Taurus, I think he's get
out of here with your
enough. Enough.
Okay, let's move on to fun facts with Jeff. Dave.
Yeah.
Well, here's a fun fact. Too, is that Chris Pine has blue eyes and William Shatner has hazel eyes, and so Captain Kirk in this universe has much blue eyes. And they said, well, it was the fact that he was born in space.
Were you mesmerized by his eyes, Dave? Is this how you know this?
No, it bothers Dave that his eyes are not green.
There's people in this world you're telling me that have sat down and wondered why Kirk's eyes were a different color. Like, who cares?
People who notice these
Dave
things.
does.
Oh, it was you. Oh, okay.
Not just me.
Oh, okay.
There's lots going on. Okay, do you know that Zachary Quinto wears special ears because Zachary Quinto has attached earlobes, but Leonard Nimoy does not. So he had to wear special lobes here, so at the bottom, because you know how some people have attached earlobes and some people don't. Did anyone notice that? Okay, so moving on.
None of us we can't even make fun of you. We're showing.
I know, like I'm at this point. I'm like, well, I can't cut him up. He's already doing it for himself. Like, what's the point?
Mm-hmm. And so
like, losing it.
like we have the birth. Yeah, he says, well, what are we gonna call him? And he's like, let's name him after your father. Wait, Tiberius? No, that's the worst. Let's name him after your father, Jim, but we'll name him James, I guess. And so it's the birth of Jim Kirk. His father's dead, and now we have this new timeline. And there's a whole other part of this movie that's not explained, which is what happens to Nero for 25 years. Well, because he
flies around getting pissed off.
It's actually not what happened. So they cut a whole bunch of stuff out of this movie where after the Kelvin blows into their ship's disabled. They're then attacked by Klingons. The Klingons take all of them prisoner and put them into like a labor camp for 25 years. And I guess they kept their ship around. And then somehow they got their ship back.
There was like a flashback or something in this movie about that.
You see like scenes, you see like clips away, but there was a whole B story that got completely cut out of this movie. And I don't think any of us care because we're just like assuming Nero was flying around for 25 years being mad.
We all know that Nero's going to be dead by the end of this fucking movie anyway. So what does it matter?
It's just
He's a villain in a movie.
It's so weird for a villain to be sort of like, oh, we have to wait for the main character to grow up, so we're gonna have to like not explain where he went for all this time.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it works. I think the movie works better the fact that they don't try to explain it. Actually,
you don't have to explain every single thing in a movie. Like,
yeah.
You can leave some of it up to your audience to speculate about.
You can speculate on it.
Yeah, this is a series of cool scenes at the beginning. It's like we're having the scene with Kirk's dad getting killed. Then we're going to have the scene where Kirk's driving a car and he purposely drives it off a cliff for no reason. And then we're going to have the scene with Spock as a kid in the Vulcan Academy. And then we're going to, everything is just...
know how that kid was even switching gears in a fucking 1968 Mustang.
Can't even see over the steering wheel.
Anything about that car or any car in that era is, it's not like you just go, ta-ta, and you're good to go. It's fucking like this kid's a little tiny kid. Like, come on. That kid must have been driving first the entire time.
Yeah, questionable choice to make it like a 10-year-old kid. Why not just make it when he's like 14?
A teenager
or 15. Would have made more sense.
I guess it's so we didn't hate him.
Still a good scene though. I like it.
It's fine.
With like sabotage during that.
It's a good scene.
Yeah, in the immortal words of Kevin Millard, it's fine.
Well, okay, like even like the music score for this movie, I think this is maybe one of the best Star Trek scores.
I'm gonna get you a shirt that says that.
Anyway. And they use a lot more popular. Like obviously, they're using "Sabotage" by the Beastie Boys because William Shatner couldn't pronounce sabotage in like some of his like captain's logs on the TV show.
Yeah, so
he would always sabotage.
It's a way to kind of stick it to him a bit. Yeah,
a bunch of dicks.
Yeah,
shitting on William Shatner. He tried his best.
That's right.
But do you guys like? I'll just play like a little sample of the music here because like this opening, right, where it goes like. It's so good. It's really so good. Like it's Michael.
It's well done. I don't know if it's so good. It's like
fine.
It's
That's what it is.
A good score, but
it's fine.
Do I like for me? Like I still prefer listening to the Deep Space Nine score. You know?
Like I don't know if it's my favorite, but it is a really the music just gets you like, yes, I love this. Like, what's going on?
It's a good opening for a return to Star Trek. Like, after so long, that's a good opening.
I'll give you that. That's a good point.
Absolutely, for sure. It definitely gets into the movie. Without the score, this movie would be dog shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't think we would like it. We would not do the same thing.
Dog shit.
No, it would be dog shit.
I don't think we would look at it as favorably. I just think that I just think that music in a film sets the tone, sets the emotion, can make you feel things, and this one makes me feel all kinds of things. Even now, I've watched this movie dozens of times now. And
you don't masturbate to this, do you?
No.
Not every time.
Yeah. All right. And then we get right. And then we talked about the flashes a little bit between him driving the car, Spock on Vulcan. I don't get the impression that
Dick like all the Vulcans in his grade are a bunch of dicks to him. Like, would that even be the case? Like, would Vulcans?
There's been lots of references to this even in the Prime universe where they talk about the boys teasing them, but it's never really they showed us a little bit in the animated series. There was an episode where Spock goes back in time to his childhood, in that.
Yeah, and it gets
But
picked on.
yeah, it gets picked on. But these are mean Vulcans. But I don't know. I don't understand. Like Spock would have had pretty much the same life he would have had in the Prime universe, right? Like there's no like I understand that Kelvin got blown up and
Yeah,
Kirk had a very different childhood. But
Yeah, I think that's what it's kind of trying to show you, though. It's trying to
He
show
would
you
have, he would have,
Spock is pretty much the exact same thing.
he would have pretty much the same life right up until his mother dies.
yeah, because
Right?
Spock, but he clearly doesn't because
He doesn't at all.
by the time we pick up the events, like sort of after these childhood flashes, which I don't even understand what Kirk was doing with that car and throwing it out of the thing. And
Going to show that he's a rebel, and
Yeah.
you know,
I did like that we got a glimpse of Kirk's brother, George Kirk Jr., but who died in that remember the flying
The
jellyfish
flying
episode? Yeah. Yeah, he got killed there, and they don't touch on that, but I like because he's a little older than Jim Kirk, so I like that reference. And then we is it just the two flashes? We just get the one with Spock as a kid, the one with Kirk as a kid, and then we're sort of like they're grown up, and now we're at this.
Yeah, we get Spock as a child, as an adult, or whatever he is.
Oh, and then he's at the
early
Vulcan
20s.
Science Academy.
Yeah, they're like,
Right?
yeah, your weakness. So you mean what weakness? What weakness do you refer?
We get that little bit of a scene between him and Winona Ryder first.
Yeah, just Spock's not working for me on the rewatch, especially. Like, there's just like I don't know, there's something about his performance that is so stilted and just not right. Like, it's just doesn't have the same feeling that Leonard Nimoy brought to the character.
Too much. He's too angry. He plays it.
Yes, angry. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like he's barely containing his anger.
Yeah, he doesn't play it emotionless. He plays it angry, and it doesn't fit. Spock was never angry.
Spock is way more dedicated to Vulcan doctrine than most Vulcans.
Yeah, like
really
he's a lot more like what Data is supposed to be, where like Data is kind of like, if you make a joke, like, please no, I will not be offended. That's kind of...
But it's also weird because we eventually do get Leonard Nimoy in this movie playing Spock, and then we get to see these two next to each other, and yeah, they're playing different ages, but
it's supposed to be the same person.
It's supposed to be the same person. It doesn't feel like it really.
So when it say, you got to make it your own, you're redoing it, you're rebooting it. Yeah, but you're sharing a scene with the same guy. Like, you have to do an imitation. Like, otherwise you look like an idiot.
Zachary Quinto has the toughest part in that because he has to actually share the screen with his counterpart.
Yeah,
the rest of the
worst Vulcan I've ever seen.
Yeah,
he's the worst Vulcan.
Even more so than that chick from the Star Trek movie, Star Trek 3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Robin Curtis.
He's the worse Vulcan than Robin Curtis.
She's just horny. She's just wanted some Spock.
And now I have the curse or benefit of comparing him to Ethan Peck, who's playing Spock on Star Trek Discovery, and now going to play Spock on Strange New Worlds, this new spin-off show they're doing during the Pike years.
How is he compared to Ethan Peck?
I think it's about the same. It's a very emotional Spock, like dealing with his sister, like this sibling rivalry he's had with this. It's not good. And I don't like it. And there's even this big goodbye for them at the end of season 2.
About?
The other guy who plays Spock on Discovery.
We're talking about Discovery now?
Well, we were talking about because I'll explain it to you. We were talking about Leonard Nimoy playing Spock, and we're talking about Zachary Quinto playing Spock, and there's a third guy who's played Spock, Ethan Peck.
And apparently he also sucks. I've never seen him either.
He's not good.
That doesn't bode well for the new show.
It does not. He's a good Vulcan, sort of, but he's not Spock to me. Anyway, and then when he goes up to they're like, welcome to the Vulcan Science Academy, and you got him despite your disadvantage, and he's like, your human mother. I'm like, these are the most racist Vulcans. It's one thing for the kids to be doing it, but for the adults to say something like that was very out of character for the Vulcans for me.
They're shitting on the whole Vulcan way.
Yeah, so when they blow up Vulcan, you're like, whatever, they're a bunch of dicks.
Yeah, pretty much.
That really is true. I actually think I even said that when I first saw it. I'm like, good race, you bunch of dicks.
This movie, in some ways, is worse than Into Darkness and Beyond because it tries to convince you that it tries to convince you that it's a good Star Trek movie when really it's an abomination against certain things that are in Star Trek that should never have been fucked with, like Vulcan, like the whole way Vulcans are. Like they do not pay tribute to like the way Tuvok played Tuvok or Tim Russ.
I think the guy playing Sarek, Ben Cross, does a pretty good job.
He's in the movie like for like literally 3 scenes, and he's like you can't really. Yeah,
He's there. Spock. That's pretty
the
much
main
it.
representation of the Vulcans is Spock in the movies, in the show, everything. And I don't know, like, come on, like they're trying to change the whole way Vulcans are. They're supposed to be these logical, emotionalist people that do not even look at emotion; they look at it as a hindrance. That is like their core principle. Spock says it over and over again in the TV show and the movies, and in this movie, like Kevin's right, he's pissed off. He's like, oh, I got bullied when I was a kid. Oh, my mom doesn't love me, but does she love me? My dad doesn't love me.
I think we see that Winona Ryder loves him very much.
It's teenage.
He's not in a situation where he should be pissed off. When he's in a situation where he's just normal, he's playing it pissed off. Like he's not playing it emotionless.
Teenage emo Spock.
Yes,
that's what he is.
Like the scene where after Vulcan gets blown up and Zoe Saldana is trying to comfort Spock in the turbo lift, where she's just like, I'm sorry. Then he breaks down. Spock wouldn't have broken down. Like, like he would have, like,
you know why? Because we saw Leonard Nimoy, like we saw him break down, like, and he was kind of like, oh,
yeah,
right? Like that's as much as we saw out of Leonard Nimoy's reaction, right?
Right, which is correct.
Yeah.
He's not supposed to.
And every time these two are in the same scene together, you're just like, this is gonna suck. And it's so true.
I enjoy the movie. It's a fun movie to watch, but it's not quite Star Trek.
What do you guys think about the introduction? Okay, so after this whole, after Zachary Quinto says, live long and prosper to the Vulcan Science Academy, I'm going to Starfleet, see you later.
Bullshit.
Then I know. Okay, but we have to move on, Jeff. So then we get to the bar in Riverside, Iowa, where they're building the Enterprise, and Uhura's coming in, and she's doing this like, bouncy walk as she comes in. She seems like a lot of fun, right? You're like, she seems fun and sexy and awesome. Like, what's she about, right? And this is where we get the introduction of Zoe Saldana as Uhura, meeting Chris Pine as Kirk. This is his debut, and he's very, he's flirting with her. He's trying to.
This is a scene where I don't have a problem with her.
Yeah, I like this scene. I don't understand the fight. What is the bar fight about? Because
he called them cupcake, Dave.
But no, but all he was doing was talking to her, and then they're like, "Why is he bothering you?" And hey, farm boy, get away from her.
I'll see Jeff because I can't see Jeff.
No.
Okay, good.
Jeff, you have your camera off?
Yeah,
there it is.
I had.
Oh, there you go.
It was on purpose.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But yeah, so he gets into this bar. Before he knows it, he's in this bar fight with this guy he calls Cupcake, who just beats and then these two. Like, this isn't Starfleet. Starfleet would not do a 4-on-1 like this. Like, it's Chris Pine versus 4 guys. It's I don't like these. I would kick these guys out of Starfleet for this. Like, this is not honorable.
Well, they get in shit when they're fighting.
Yeah, they get whistled at. Like,
Pike comes in and gives
Starfleet is different in the 23rd century. Like, it's different.
Okay, fair enough. It's a little more rough and tumble than
it is, and it is even in the show. You see it. It's
that's true.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Okay.
I never looked at it that way, but that's pretty.
Scotty gets into quite a few bar fights, but this Scotty would never get into a bar fight, and that's why this Scotty is bullshit.
Well, you never get a chance, but
we got our chance.
Even the fact that they're building the Enterprise in Riverside, Iowa, which happens to be the city that Jim Kirk lives in, but that's a change because the Enterprise in the main continuity was built in San Francisco.
Yes.
So it just happens that they were building this ship in his hometown, and they just happened to be there. Right time, right place. But
the motorcycle that he was driving, I'm almost positive was some sort of electronic thing. So they had to keep it within like 30.
So I think we're supposed to. I think in this movie we're supposed to assume that them going back in time, or Nero going back in time, didn't just change the things that he affected, but he changed everything. Like,
well, yeah, it's kind of like that butterfly effect, right? Like, you know, so that the changes become more and more increased over time. So this is 25 years after these events. How many people were born, weren't born, marriages didn't happen? Who knows? Like things, all like just the timeline went very differently. So for for some people more than others. And yeah, now they're building the Enterprise here, so yeah, you can explain that away. Okay, now this time
that is how you should do a prequel. You should be like, this is a great
a reboot, like this version, like a
you can
reboot,
take whatever you want now. Like,
yeah. And that's what it was smart. It was a smart move. They're like, we'll be able to reboot, but we're paying homage to the old stuff. We're connected to the old stuff, but we can have our we can tell these stories however we want to. We can make these characters whatever we want to now, for better or worse. And sure, like and I think it kind of works and it kind of doesn't most of the time. And then Bruce Greenwood as Pike shows up, right? Yeah, this is
one of my favorite actors. I just love him.
A great Canadian actor. I love him in what's that? 13 Days, the one where he plays JFK.
Yep, 13
He's
Days.
Excellent.
I think
He's
really good at that.
I think his performance of Pike is why everybody is trying to make like a Pike show or a Pike This is the beginning of Pike being everybody's favorite. Because before this movie, nobody gave a shit about Christopher Pike at all.
No,
not really. No.
But
he was one of the
he
former
does a great
commanders.
job.
He does.
There's
excellent.
There was two captains of the Enterprise before Captain Kirk, William Shatner, Captain Kirk. Pike's one of them, and the other's Robert April. Right? Because the Enterprise, by the time Kirk takes on the Enterprise is already like 20 years old.
Yeah.
Or something close to that. And this this timeline is very different because these are like the events of the movie, like most of the stuff is taking place in the like late 2250s, which is like 10 years before Shatner and all them. Like William Shatner's Kirk is much older when he becomes captain of the Enterprise. I like that more. I like that you have to actually like earn your ranks. You're not just made a captain out of it. Like you go from cadet to captain, and the way that the things play out in this movie. But I like that they at least get Kirk that he has to like go to Starfleet Academy for 3 years. Or like maybe that would have been like, wow, you're in now. You're
find him in a bar and put him on a ship and be like, you're the boss.
I guarantee you that the director and the studio wanted to do that, and then the writers were like, "We can't. We have."
You have to see. He has to go to school and learn how to do this, right?
They're like, "But that's going to waste valuable killing Romulan time. We need that time."
Right, because they basically turn Captain Kirk, they turn James Kirk into kind of a Han Solo type character, a roguish, like a super smart but wasted potential kind of guy who, because he's about 22 at this point in his life. Whereas the William Shatner Kirk went into Starfleet Academy at the age of 18, so he's been kind of messing around for 4 years, getting into bar fights, whatever he does, I guess. But then he takes the chance. He looks at that ship. He does that. He has the it's Luke Skywalker looking at the sunset, right? In Star Trek, in Star Wars: A New Hope, right? Like that's exactly what they were trying to do. When he's like, on his motorcycle there, looking up at the ship.
This is a Star Wars movie. We already discussed this.
We established that the people who made this movie are bigger Star Wars fans than they are Star Trek fans, and like they made this movie kind of like Game of Thrones made the last season of Game of Thrones to get a Star Wars thing, and they're gonna fight, because that's like the holy grail of paychecks in Hollywood, and like that's why. Star Wars, for whatever, they know it's dumb people are going to watch Star Wars. They're like, maybe some dumb people will watch Star Trek too. And guess what? Some people did. And, for me, it's just like they did certain things good. Like you said, he went to the Academy. But then he gets the ship over Captain Spock later on in the movie.
Yeah.
So it's just
it's strange, but whatever. It's fine, I guess. This is the rules of this.
Fine.
What about before he gets to Starfleet though? He gets on the shuttle. He's joining Starfleet. He says hello to Cupcake. Uhura's always give him dirty looks in this movie, and then he meets Bones. This is where we get Carl Urban's introduction as Bones.
And this is where the movie gets good.
It's the only thing I really like is I can't say a bad word about Carl Urban's performance as Bones. He's amazing. So I feel like Chris Pine's pretty great as Kirk too. Both those guys were perfectly cast.
Very good.
They have chemistry, like friendship, chemistry there.
I believe in a heartbeat that these two guys are best friends.
Yeah. Like just the way that
they first start chatting. Even when they're first chatting, you're like, these guys are going to be really good friends soon.
Yeah,
like
you
just
the
know
whole the divorce backstory, right? Yeah. He's like, oh, she took everything but my bones, which is like, okay, sure. All right.
Is that why was he called Bones? Did they ever explain?
It's actually short. His nickname was Sawbones because he's a surgeon and he would saw
Yeah.
bones. But in this movie, they give it a different meaning. So
Yeah, it's totally different.
I just assumed it was like Witch Doctor.
No,
no.
I was
Yeah.
like,
but that would have been cool.
Yeah, but he's going. Why is he in Iowa? I guess that's where he was joining Star. It doesn't matter. I know I ask dumb questions like this, but
That's
like I'm
where
like,
they're shipping into the ship. That's all.
I could
Yeah.
care less why certain people are where. Like, I don't even care. Like, the Enterprise where it was built doesn't matter that
because
much.
I think about this version of Leonard McCoy, his life is very different, I guess, than the other Leonard McCoys, and whatever. I guess it's fine. But and then it's to skip ahead 3 years after that, right?
Yeah, because there's.
Oh no, we see Nero. Nero's out, and he's got his ship back. We've skipped over all that stuff where he escapes from the Klingon prison. Nero's back, and he waits for Ambassador Spock, Leonard Nimoy Spock, to come out of the portal. Goes, we got him. And then it's 3 years later, and we get it's McCoy talking to Kirk about the test. You're gonna take the Kobayashi Maru test again.
My favorite scene in the movie, by the way.
Nobody goes back for seconds and thirds. It's the worst test there is. Nobody does it.
It's my favorite.
We also see that Kirk's in bed with the green Orion slave girl. Well, she's not a slave girl. She's a Starfleet officer. I'm sorry. She's an Orion Starfleet officer girl. So, which is one of the famous things of Star
Her
Trek.
roommate ends up being a green chick in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Famous thing of Star Trek, but this is the first time he's ever been in bed with a green girl.
Yep.
Yes, no, because the green girl is actually more associated with Pike and the original pilot than it is with Kirk. But whatever, sure. There were some Orions that we saw, and so it's just kind of a nice Star Trek moment. It's kind of like the green lady, and it's this is a sexier. This ain't your daddy's Star Trek. This is a sexier, more action packed, funnier Star Trek. Sure. And this is where he was using her. He was using the to get the information he needed to reprogram that test so that he could beat the test. That's kind of like the backstory of that, apparently. And then we get the whole Kirk eating an apple, taking the Kobayashi Maru, and just Uhura's just not having it. She's not impressed with him, and I just like when he's like, don't waste ammunition.
No, he's like, I'll learn medical.
Yeah, he's so calm about everything.
I understand.
I understand.
Fire back?
No.
Of course not.
What is this? What's going on?
What is this? What's going on?
Armed photons, prepare to fire on the Klingon warbirds. Yes, sir.
Jim, their shields are
See-
still up.
Are they?
See, I feel like in this scene,
No.
he's doing the most William Shatner.
This is the most William Shatner in the entire movie. Yeah.
I never saw William Shatner eat an apple like this and be so smug.
It's the cockiness. It's the
It's the way he's delivering his lines. Like, yeah.
he's going full on smug.
Yeah.
But I never remember William Shatner being this smug. At least not.
More just the way he says, like,
It's fine, Dave. It's an update.
It's an update. It's a homage. It's a reinterpretation.
Yes.
It's a reboot. Yeah, I guess. I love it. I love it too. I hate the costume in this.
Here we go with costumes.
The ugly. Because we get all these.
You know what? We almost made it an hour without him bitching about costumes.
Oh, I'm not done talking about costumes.
Oh, I know you're not done.
But so there's so many different versions of the Starfleet uniform, and some of them look better than others. This is one of the worst that we have in this whole simulation here. And so he gets
why they're wearing like the Wesley Crusher light blue, dark blue shoulder. Like they're wearing exactly what Wesley Crusher wears when he sits on the damn TNG bridge.
I know I don't like Wesley Crusher either, but I do like the ones that have like the red jackets, and then I guess the officers or the commissioned officers wear like this black uniform. That looks good when they're.
Crusher and Troy were the only ones allowed to wear their pajamas on the bridge.
Yeah.
Just Troy, really. I don't think Crusher could.
Crusher was wearing
Crusher had the coat over though.
He had that light blue onesie. The light blue onesie.
Oh, that's true. She did. Yeah.
No, this is
Wesley.
Oh, Wesley. I thought you were talking. Oh,
Wesley Crusher and Deanna Troy.
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember
pajamas on the bridge of TNG.
Both got to wear their pajamas on the bridge.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Dr. Crusher. I'm like,
I mean,
she almost always had a uniform on.
No, you know what I always liked about Dr. Crusher? She wore a jacket. I like
The
that.
blue jacket. Yeah.
Yeah, that made a lot of sense.
Well,
She's a doctor.
doctor.
Right, but like McCoy doesn't wear a blue jacket.
McCoy don't need no blue jacket.
Yeah, it's a short sleeve variant.
McCoy doesn't need a crutch like
He
that.
doesn't want to cut Sulu's grass, Sulu's cape. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
upstage him.
That's one guy we haven't talked about at all, but we'll talk about Sulu in a minute. But and then we get the Kirk. Well, Spock is the one who created the Kobayashi Maru, apparently. And how that guy beat your test, I do not know. And this is where Kirk and Spock meet, and it's not a good.
You meant to say Spock made it.
Spock
said
made the
Kirk.
test.
Hey, you're
Sorry,
like, Kirk
yeah.
made the test. I'm like,
No,
oh.
Spock made the test. I'm sorry. Spock created the test, which I think is also a change in this version. And so in the original timeline, Kirk did cheat on the test to beat the test, but he got accommodation for original thinking. But in this version, he's almost expelled.
And he gets fucking court-martialed for it.
He's practically going to be thrown out of the service for what he did here. But this also sets up this whole like Kirk is an outsider thing because he's kind of on academic probation because of all this. But then this crisis erupts with Vulcans under attack, and we all have to leave, and we got to get the fleet out of here.
Oh my god! I just thought of something. This is a remake of Pearl Harbor.
How so?
Think about it.
So I haven't even seen Pearl Harbor.
Oh well, then you're missing the whole point.
Is that what happens?
Seen Pearl Harbor?
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's like he's just sitting around, and all of a sudden something happens. So he's like, "Fuck, I got to do something." Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Like I think that's a smart thing. The fact that Kirk is like this, like almost like a pariah to them throughout the whole mission, where like nobody wants to listen to him, even though he's right all the time, and he's what his ideas are actually the best ideas. I think Pike sees it, even though Pike says you're not even supposed to be here, Kirk, and blah blah blah. Once they finally get on the ship,
That's what I like about Green's performance, though, is that you're like, I want to hate Pike because he's kind of a dick, but you're like, but he's a dick that makes perfect sense. Like
he's like a fatherly figure.
He's the right level of dick. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very well done. I love him.
He
Like,
plays
we
him
just-
a lot like President Kennedy in 13 Days. Like he plays him a lot like that guy.
Yeah.
No, but
Like-
Jody, we
That's
just
great.
watched The Menagerie this week, right? Which is
We
the
did.
episode where they look back at all the Pike stuff, and Pike meets Kirk. Like we see Pike and Kirk.
This movie is 20 times better than that episode.
I know, but like that that original Pike Kirk dynamic is nothing like this Kirk.
Oh
and
no,
Pike,
not at all.
right? Like they were more like equals. Like Pike was slightly older than Kirk, but this version is like Pike could be Kirk's father.
Yeah.
Kind of is his father in a lot of ways in this story. Yeah, and I like it with Bones, who like gives him the vaccine so that he can get onto the ship, right? Because he feels sorry for him that he's not allowed to come along on the mission. He's like, here, I'll give you this vaccine, and he starts getting all these symptoms. His hands are growing. I don't know. It's actually a lot of fun. I really like all that stuff.
The CG isn't, but everything else about it was good.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And this is where we get also Uhura and Spock talking, where Uhura's like, why have I been assigned to the Farragut? You know I should be on the Enterprise, da-da-da-da-da. And,
If you can honestly say you like her character after this scene, you guys are mental.
I like her. I just don't like the romance between her and Spock. I never liked Uhura in the show. I felt like she was useless. Like they didn't really.
Well, they definitely didn't use her to her potential. That's for sure.
They basically recreate her in these movies.
But they're not doing that in this one either. How useful is she really in this movie?
She's but what I agree with Kevin though, that the essence of the Uhura character was improved by Zoe Saldana, because like let's face it, Uhura, I mean in Final Frontier she's taking her clothes off and distracting people, but like she's like a 50-year-old
well,
woman.
they definitely made Uhura a more fierce part of this cast, right? Because Uhura is much more of a subordinate among the original crew, like of Shatner and all them. Like she's kind of like always a background player. Whatever, and they made her much more significant, and maybe rightly so. She's the only female member of this core group.
Yeah, she should be important, and I think they had to recreate her a lot to make her better. But like, I feel like they at least still kept the essence of the character, that like Uhura is supposed to be the person that knows languages, is good technically. Like she has a certain skill set, and they kept that skill set with Uhura. I feel like with Scotty, they lost the essence of the character of Scotty when they Simon Pegg did a good job, but like, did they really Scotty should have been played by like I don't know, like a James McAvoy or Gerard Butler or somebody that's like Scottish that is like rough and tough. You know, can play a super genius, but can also punch you out. Simon Pegg ain't punching nobody out. You know,
Right.
like it's a ridiculous like casting.
They made him like this like silly, very silly person.
They made
Now-
him, it's like he took all his inspiration from Scotty in Star Trek V,
Yeah.
rather than the rest of everything.
Yes.
Like-
They're like, what? Well, this is the only time that Scotty
I
was
don't
kind of
think
like.
this isn't a fault of either one of these actors, though. I think this is what
No.
they were presented and told to do. I like Zoe. Zoe is a very, very capable actress, and you know she's nice to look at and everything, right? So it's she certainly. I think it was the dialogue that really killed me in the relationship. That relationship was so useless in this.
Oh
in this
yeah,
movie.
I hate it.
It
I
was
don't like it either.
uh,
Actually, I think that scene between her and Spock at the beginning, where she's not happy about her assignment, would have played a lot better if they weren't in a romance.
Yeah.
But
that
because you
was
find out
20
later
times better.
that
Then
this
you're
is
like,
just
she's not, she's just standing up for herself and shit.
Yeah,
like that.
like-
She's not standing up for herself. She's just being a spoiled fucking.
she's
brat.
bitching at her boyfriend.
She's bitching at her boyfriend, and she's that kid in school that had to whine and cry to get what they wanted.
Yeah,
So, as she comes across.
It casts a
her
certain.
mother's name is
If
probably.
they weren't in a relationship, you would think, oh, she knows what she's capable of, and she knows where she should be, and she's making sure that.
And he says, I didn't want to show favoritism.
As soon
So I
as you
guess
put them in a relationship, it's like, oh, she's trying to get favoritism. She's
Or
trying
also,
Right.
it also feels like Spock, if they're in a relationship, is Spock is trying to get her out of here, away from him, so he can so bang some other Vulcan.
or maybe he just doesn't want to have that, like, have somebody who's close to him on the same ship. Like
Yeah.
he's a commanding officer. He's first officer of that ship. It's kind of a conflict for him.
Yeah.
And then,
It's the worst part of the movie.
as they're like all going up to the ship, we get to see the Enterprise for the first time, right? And we, and it's Pike in command, and we get to meet the other character we have not talked about at all is Sulu. Is John Cho as Sulu in this movie? He shows up at this point, and because he doesn't turn the parking brake off or whatever when they're ready to go. Because even they're going, okay, everybody, we're coming on board the ship, and they're getting there, and then and Bruce Greenwood says as Pike, all right, let's punch it, which is like a Star Wars thing to say.
Yeah, it's
Like
a
punch it,
stupid
Chewie,
thing.
right? Like, and then they go and go, and he's like, "Oh, is the parking brake on?"
I'm telling you guys have already forever changed my outlook on this movie. I didn't even associate it at all to Star Trek or
Star
to
Wars.
Star
Oh,
Wars until you mentioned that. Now it's like, oh fuck, everything about this is.
Star Wars. I have some fun facts about that, and you'll
Go ahead.
Ooh,
Yep.
are we fun fact time? All right,
Fun
Hey.
fact.
want to hear one fun fact. Okay, here's a fun.
I want to hear a couple fun facts actually.
Okay, we'll go with a little fun facts. Fun facts with Jeff. Fun facts with Jeff. Okay,
Make
One
that a
day we'll have a
soundboard thing.
graphic.
we need to add some.
Oh, no soundboard for that. Just Jeff.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
it has to be just
All right.
Jeff doing it.
And you have to do your own sound effects, Jeff.
Okay, well, I did. According to the Blu-ray audio commentary, J.J. Abrams had a meeting with George Lucas. During the meeting, Abrams asked how he could make the film better, to which Lucas stated, you should add some lightsabers. Abrams understandably did not, but he later directed Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, which had plenty of appropriate lightsaber action. So there, what do you think about that? Fun fact.
I think
Not
it
surprising.
It makes me hate George Lucas even more.
Makes me hate George Lucas and J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams, why did you have a meeting with George Lucas when you were sitting down to discuss
About your Star Trek movie.
about your Star Trek movie?
yeah.
Why wouldn't you sit down with like Rick Berman to talk about your Star Trek?
I feel
movie
like
or something?
you're making a the new version of Coke, and I'm gonna go sit down with the CEO of Pepsi and see what they think how I could make
You know what?
this Coke product better.
Dave's got the nail on the head here, though. What if he did actually sit down with Berman? This movie would have been terrible.
You think Berman would have made this worse?
He would have killed this.
Oh, I don't think so. I think he could have given some good notes, some things to make it a little stronger. Like I think
He'd be
of
like,
like the
"Make another
people,
insurrection."
the people who were involved in this project, like J.J. Abrams people, because J.J. Abrams himself is not a Star Trek guy. Okay, like I watched interviews about this movie where he's like, I didn't even. He says he doesn't even remember that Spock was half human. He had to he had just a very vague sense of who these characters were.
So another fun fact: to make this film appealed to the casual audience, Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman cut down on the technical terms, increased the action, and named this simply Star Trek to indicate to newcomers they would not need to watch the other films. As a prequel, J.J. Abrams wanted the tone to be optimistic in contrast to revisions like Batman Begins. Being realistic and being dark are not the same thing, and wanted to retain the humor and sex appeal that made Star Trek 1966 a success. Okay.
And to varying degrees of success with that. Like they have a lot. There's a lot of good in this movie, right? And then, but then there's other things where you're like, well, it's not quite Star Trek enough for me in other ways,
right?
And these characters, if you said that this is a new Starfleet officer, I would be fine. But now you're telling me that this is Hikaru Sulu. I'm going to now compare him to George Takei's Hikaru Sulu. I have to. Okay. So that's your
Sulu's,
thing. Even
two problems with Sulu: too Korean, too tall.
John Cho is Korean and George Takei is Japanese. And,
I'm aware of that.
No, he's mainly too tall, too serious. I feel like Sulu should have a little bit more fun.
Well,
Sulu in the original series, sort of a wry humor to him.
He did, yeah, and that's something that you don't get at all with John Chu.
And he came from Harold and Kumar, go to White Castle, where he's doing a comedy, but which also he's too serious in that movie too. But really, Kumar
he was the serious of the two of them.
Yeah, for sure.
I think George Takei. I think Sulu is the least interesting member of the seven of them, right? Like of the original cast.
He's the least interesting, but he's probably one of the biggest badasses.
The only Sulu I like is a drunk Sulu with his shirt off, running around with a sword, chasing people on the ship.
That's almost what he was doing.
Or Mirror Sulu. He was awesome.
When they're having the fight on the drill, though, Sulu's badass.
Yeah. That
he's got his telescopic sword.
Remember when Sulu was always chasing people around with a sword with his shirt off? Like, let's just do that. We'll give Sulu a sword.
He literally did that.
That happened once in the original series, Dave.
Yeah, well, I remember it well.
Yes, it is a memorable moment.
It is.
Yeah.
So, fun fact.
I have to watch the Space Hippies episode now.
Mm-hmm. Right. Fun fact: Steven Spielberg convinced J.J. Abrams to direct this film and provided some advice on the action sequences. Zoe Saldana played a huge fan of Star Trek, who admits she loves going to conventions at Yeoman Rand in Spielberg's The Terminal. So, kind of a fun fact there. This film finally establishes her first name in Star Trek canon as Nyota. Gene Roddenberry never came up with a first name for her while Star Trek 1966 was in production, and as only live-action television series and films are considered canon, non-canon material such as novels invented their own first names. Nyota, the Swahili word for star, was first used in 1982 and is often used in printed Star Trek literature, including DC Comics publication Who's Who in Star Trek, though some of the materials...
Yeah, when he says her name in this movie, when I saw it the first time, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Nyota, that's kind of unofficial.
Yeah, we didn't really care.
Now I guess it's official. Cool.
Still don't care.
Really?
Doesn't matter if she has a first name. Yeah.
I think they finally did some work on Uhura, guys. Uhura is this background character in the TV show and the movies. She barely matters. She has a few scenes where she has some good, actually really funny comedic moments, especially in the scene, I think, is in Undiscovered Country or is it Final Frontier when they're speaking Klingon to the other Klingon? I think
it's 6 in Undiscovered Country. Yeah, where she's like, and then she turns it off.
And in this movie, she knows all 3 dialects of Romulan already, and she's kind of a different person.
Yes, this is a much more intellectual.
It's a reimagining.
It's a reimagining.
A different person with the same name. Basically.
But they should have, for whatever reason, they kind of made her a silly character in the TV show and in the movies. Yes. And I think in this movie, they did what they should have done with her a long time ago, which was make her a much smarter, more capable character, and more important to the crew. She should be a big part of the movie. At the same time, I'm not upset with her at all in the movie. For me, it's Scotty is an abomination, and Scotty, you gotta have a good Scotty.
He's not an abomination. He's just a very different person.
He's not the same character
at all. At all.
Yeah, I don't know. I can we also talk about what about the uniforms? What did you guys think when they finally got like the blue, red, yellow going on in that movie?
Good, fine, good with it.
Did you like that more or
It's
less than the?
fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Okay, good. As long as it's fine, I'm happy if it's fine.
Okay.
And so, as they're going along, Chekhov says, "We are approaching Vulcan, Victor 2." Like I just like I like that little part where he gives like the little briefing. We are approaching Vulcan.
Yeah, he's good. So it says Zoe Saldana never saw Star Trek 1966, but she agreed to play the role of Uhura after J.J. Abrams had complimented her previous performances. For an actor, that's all you need. That's all you want to get the acknowledgement and respect from your peers, she said. However, Saldana's mother was a huge fan of Star Trek and sent her voicemails during filming, giving advice on the role. So there you go. It's a fun fact about Zoe Saldana and her role of Uhura. The engine room of the USS Enterprise was filmed in a Budweiser factory in Van Nuys.
Now this I have to. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Jeff, but
No, go ahead.
I have to make a comment on this. This is a great thing to show because we always get this nice, pretty clean warp core or something like that. This is industrial bullshit, and that's exactly what this would be. Like, this is an old ship to begin with, technically, but obviously it's a fairly new ship in this timeline.
In this version, yeah.
Yeah, but still, it's gonna have a lot of that, the raw in it, and that's what I liked about this design. I thought this was a great idea.
Because earlier on, when you see the Kelvin's engine room, it's the same kind of aesthetic. Like it feels like a factory, right? And
That's what it should feel like.
It's interesting.
They're not gonna make an engine room pretty and ergonomic and everything. Like, it's a fucking engine room. It's designed for accessibility. That's what.
I think that was a smart decision to do the production there. Yeah, it gave a different aesthetic to this world, and it works mostly.
Yeah, and as Jeff said, it was a Budweiser factory, which was kind of cool too. Some of those vats are just the vats that they
just say they're deuterium tanks or something.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense. Like, and that's kind of how the engine room is shown in the original series as well. It's like this big engine factory.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the next gen, it's like this.
But even in the movies, like the original series movies, when you see the engine rooms for the limited amount of times you do, they're not anything like the one that was in the original Enterprise.
No.
So it's accessibility. It's a fucking engine. It's not designed to look pretty. It's designed to do its fucking job and be able to access things.
Yeah,
I thought that was great.
Like the Enterprise D's engine room looks like an Apple store. So it's like strange.
Someone's going to try to sell you an extended warranty.
This Enterprise's bridge looks like the Apple Store.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
It's so white, and it's just like
it's so
lens flares galore and whatever.
And they go to red alert at one point. Pike says red alert, and like nothing goes red.
No.
Yeah.
They're on red alert, and it's like, oh, look, some of the screens changed.
It
doesn't even play the sound.
I mean, I don't get like that sometimes. Like I like a lot of times in movies where they love to use color. And then in that moment where they could have went to red alert, they could have turned the whole bridge red.
If you got something wrong, if you got something against the color white or whatever you want to call it, but if you have something against white, you're not going to like this set. This set is just white. Everything's white.
It's very modern looking. Like, I don't hate it. It's just like the lighting bothers me.
It's like staring at a fluorescent tube all time.
Every corridor is bright white.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
even for like a fire safeties.
But it feels like a starship. It feels like
but imagine if they have like some sort of massive catastrophe and like lights are out and shit like that. You would never find your way out of this place. Everything looks white.
I don't know.
Like, where's the emergency exits? I don't fucking know. I can't find them. Everything's white.
I like it. I like the aesthetic of this Enterprise. I don't like the nacelles. I think that they're too big and ugly looking. But
you like the way the bridge looks in this movie?
I do not.
If it wasn't just so bright, if the lighting was, but I think it's a good design for a bridge. I think it looks functional.
You don't like the E because it's too dark. You don't like the new one because it's too bright. Like,
I like this one better than the E. I like the ship. I like the ship better than the E.
I think overall. I like the E more.
And I like these uniforms more than I like anything they wore, like the gray shoulder with the red turtleneck thing or whatever. Like, I don't like that. So so anyway, but each their own. And this is where, like, I think it's finally Kirk wakes up right, with the big hands, and he's like, he hears about the lightning storm in space from Chekhov's announcement. He goes, he clues this all in, like, this is the Romulans who attacked and killed my father. I have to go up there, and he's, they're always ready to throw him in the brig or throw him. They throw him.
And just when we thought we would get away with one Star Trek movie without the whole convenience factor, here it comes.
Here it comes.
All convenience from the side.
Right, and he comes up and he makes this argument, and Spock's not happy he's there and everything else, and but then they go, yeah, he's probably right. Yeah, that checks out. And then they're not as the fact that they were slowed down because Sulu forgot to turn off the parking brake allows them to get to this thing just moments after, and all of their other ships that were coming with them have been destroyed, and now it's pandemonium. And here comes Nero, and Nero's ready to destroy them too, until he notices that it's the Enterprise and it has the younger Spock on it.
And we're about to get to the best quote in the entire
here.
movie. Do you actually have the audio for it?
Isn't that right, Spock?
Sir, I pick up no Romulan transmission or transmission of any kind in the area.
It's because they're being attacked.
Oh wait, hold on.
2 seconds.
Going through the whole movie here?
No, I just gotta find it.
Report the cells to forward. 32%. The weapons are powered.
Porter ability.
All power to.
This is a great podcast.
This is why I need a
like-
soundboard. See?
I thought you had a soundboard.
Captain, we're being hailed.
Here goes.
Hello.
I'm Captain Christopher Pike. To whom am I speaking?
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
I love that line.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
Hi, Christopher. I'm
You've
Nero.
declared war against the Federation. Withdraw. I'll agree to arrange a conference with Romulan leadership at a neutral location.
I do not speak for the Empire. We stand apart. As does your Vulcan crew member. Isn't that right, Spock?
No, man.
Right, I think we get the whole thing. I'm not gonna play the whole thing for you, but it's yeah, like a tense
We're already
moment.
gonna get sued as it is.
Not for a couple of seconds of audio. It's free. It's fair trade. Where was I going before you derailed me, Jody? Yeah, I think that Eric Bana is excellent in this role as Nero. I think he's a great villain, considering that, like, just the way he delivers his lines. I think his performance is compelling. I don't think
he's not the problem with the movie at all. Like, there's certain people that the movie is like a good, solid movie, but it could have been, again, really much better had they been a little bit more faithful to the original show, and just been like try to make it less Star Warsy. I mean,
They did a great job considering almost nobody knew anything about Star Trek.
absolutely.
Like, making the movie was like, what is this Star Trek thing we're making?
Yeah.
They ended up doing a pretty good job.
I think they had some people who were Star Trek fans involved. I think like Lindelof is a Star Trek fan, and I think like Bob Orci is a Star Trek fan.
Carl Urban is it says here in Fun Facts with Jeff, Carl Urban is a longtime self-described religious fan of Star Trek. He used to watch the series on Saturday morning in New Zealand with his father shortly before word came down about the development of this film. He bought the complete series on DVD and watched them with his son. So, I mean, but Zoe Saldana had never watched Star Trek, but her mom was a fan. You know, so like you get certain people, and I find like I don't feel like Patrick Stewart was a fan of Star Trek before he came on to be Picard. You know, right?
None of the Next Gen cast were.
They weren't before at all.
Like,
No?
I think Michael Dorn a little bit,
but not Jonathan Frakes. Like he
I don't
never
think
watched.
so.
Really?
No,
But Next Gen is kind of a complete departure from original series. Like it's different. It's a different show.
Yeah, all right.
It's supposed to be.
Which is what they were trying to do with Discovery and Picard. They're trying to be different, and I think it's largely not working. Sometimes just being different for the sake of it doesn't always.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's better.
Right. According to Simon Pegg, J.J. Abrams wanted to emphasize the size of the ship and gave the engine room a highly industrial experience. He explained to Pegg that he was inspired by Titanic, which depicted a sleek ship with an incredible gut.
Sure. Yeah, that was cool.
That's true.
Yeah, okay. So there's when Akira Sulu stabs the Romulan, his blade exits the body looking green. This is because Vulcans and Romulans, both have green blood. Yeah, there's a bunch of fun facts in here.
Okay, we're kind of at that point in the movie, like when they jump off that platform, right? When Pike goes off to the shuttle off to Nero's ship, and he makes Kirk the first officer, which I think is an interesting choice because isn't he on academic probation and whatever? But he makes
It's wartime.
it's wartime, I guess. Interesting choice. And so he goes off to become captured by the Romulans, and he puts Sulu, Kirk, and Chief Engineer Olsen on this mission to like do this orbital jump, right? And to stop the Romulans from drilling into Vulcan. It's a fun action sequence, like, you know. And then they got the whole red shirt element to Olsen, right? Because he's just like the guy who's like, yes, I'm going to get the one, because they have to kill this guy so that when Scotty shows up, the position of chief engineer is open, and he's just like the red shirt who has to die.
But
right?
who watched that scene for the first time and went, red shirt? Oh, awesome.
The
Because you totally knew he was going to die.
The Doctor also dies though, and then that's how Bones becomes Doctor as well.
Right. Yeah. So there's a couple deaths off screen, or well, Olsen we see on screen because he doesn't open his chute until the last second. Is he Scottish as well, Olsen? He's British or Scottish, and he's like, and then they're like, pull your chute, Olsen, pull your chute, and he waits till he gets right there, and then his parachute like pulls him into like the fire, and he gets vaporized. And he's like, ah! it's hilarious. And
Just like Ruafu.
And Chekhov's like,
Sorry, I missed that. How does that go again?
The Ruafu?
No. What happened when he went into the fire?
Yeah, that's what Olsen said. They should have used that
They
audio.
should have just used that audio. I was setting you up, Dave. You
I
just
know.
took
I
forever.
appreciate that. I was
I was trying to
no,
set you up
he's
for
queuing me
it.
up. He's setting me up.
I
Yeah.
accused you there.
I love the sequence. I like when Sulu gets his sword out. It reminds me of Sulu without a shirt running around with the sword on the Enterprise in the original series.
You really hung up on that.
I
He
am.
really
I guess.
is.
I'm like, that's what my like when I think of Sulu, that's what I think of largely, or Mirror Sulu with the scar across.
Have
his
you
chest.
have you thought about why you feel that way, Dave?
I have not. I just think it just stands out as like this. He was just so crazy. Sulu's so crazy in that scene because he's like out of his mind.
He's got
like,
the rip chest going on.
It's just like it's the whole thing. It's the whole thing about it. So
I understand, Dave. It's fine.
yeah, I know where you're going with this, Jody.
I'm not going anywhere with this. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. But so they managed to defeat those Romulans on the platform, but it's too late because Nero just drops that red matter in and he destroys Vulcan. We find out that Vulcan's going to be consumed by a black hole. And this is the point of the movie where I was like, the first time I was like, oh no, what the hell? You're going to destroy Vulcan? What the hell? And like, this is a big departure.
I gotta go back to Kevin Millard again. It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, like I don't know, like it's we talked about just what the event of destroying the Kelvin was. Now you've destroyed an entire planet 25 years later, so this timeline's extremely different now, for better or worse. And
Well, at least for the people on the planet.
for the people of the planet, yeah, like presumably there would be no Tuvok in this timeline now, right? Because Tuvok.
Well, then you know what? Sometimes it's a win-win.
So you gotta break some eggs, you know, if you want to make an
It's
omelet.
fine. Sometimes you gotta break some eggs to
All
make
right.
that omelet.
They broke that Vulcan egg right open and sucked it into
Although,
a black
I gotta
hole.
tell you, I think Tim Russ would have been way better as Spock. It would have been less jarring to have a black.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I would have overlooked that in a second. I'd just been
100%.
especially now.
He played a better Vulcan.
Oh yeah, and Tim Russ is like an actor who can act and sing and do and emote, right? And he was so dedicated to being Vulcan as Tuvok, right? All the whole way through, he never broke. And then here I'm watching this performance, going, "You're not even trying." Like it's not it's the way he's written too. It's not just the actor, but it's the whole thing. So they I don't know. There's a moment where Sulu and Kirk are falling off the platform, and Chekhov has to have his like sort of moment where he figures out how to beam them up while they're falling, even though he can't do that for Winona Ryder in a few seconds later. But I guess it establishes that it's harder to beam somebody up when they're falling and not standing still, which I guess makes sense. And
Again, you got to remember, this is early days. This isn't 24th century.
Sure, okay, fair enough.
You know, being in the original series took a long ass time. It wasn't so easy.
Right. You know, even like when Spock says, "Okay, Uhura, get on the line and tell Vulcan to order a planetary evacuation." Right? She wastes time arguing with him about going down before she calls Vulcan to warn them. I'm like, there are 6 billion people on Vulcan. You don't have time to argue with him about
Her
this.
feelings are more important, Dave.
I don't know. It's so stupid in that moment. And then he beams down because his parents have gone into a cave you can't beam out of, I guess. And so the Vulcan, he wants to preserve Vulcan culture among like these 8 people. So we get this kind of cool moment where he beams down and one of the Vulcan's guys gets smashed by a statue as they're running out. Like, you're like, oh, that guy got it bad. Too bad for him. And so he's okay, beam us up. We're out of the cave. And he's just looking at Winona Ryder. It's like it's the slowest transporter beam I've ever seen. And he's just like, okay. And then she falls, almost near what you would imagine the energized sequence would have started by now. Yeah. And it's like, no. And he's like, this is what. So not only did his planet get destroyed, but his mom's gone. So Spock is emotionally compromised from this point on. He's now a member of an endangered species, as he later tells us.
I think I like though that they killed his mom, because I like her in the original series. I like her in the movies. I don't think I would have liked her played by Winona Ryder.
Yeah, you're like, I've had enough, and she's played by somebody else in the shows, which nobody watches. But she's in. There is another version of this character in that.
Oh.
Yeah, and so now it's a lot of sadness. Nero's got Pike prisoner, and he gets him with that worm thing, like the kind of like Khan, but he puts it into his mouth. He's like, "Tell me like the security codes to attack Earth," and he's like, "I'll just put this thing in you," which is just like I think just a horrific moment, just to kind of pay homage to that moment.
Generally, any foreign item that gets into your body, regardless of how much it wiggles, is still a problem.
Yeah, and it makes you tell, and it becomes a truth serum too.
Well,
that's kind of a Star Trek trope. Like
it's a Star Trek. It is a Star Trek trope. And after this, we come back to the Enterprise. So Kirk wants to. He's like, we should go after Nero, and Spock's like, no, we need to rendezvous with the fleet. And they come into major disagreement over this, and so Pike or Kirk won't back down, right? And so Spock eventually nerve pinches him, and he says, "Get him off this ship." Seems extreme.
Yeah, no. It's
they do have a brig, right?
Also, yeah. Well, he originally was supposed to be confined to his quarters, I think, and then
and then they maroon him on this ice planet with scary monsters.
But maybe Spock already knew what was going to happen.
He didn't. And this is where he meets the first he's being chased by like a really big polar bear thing or something, and then that polar bear gets eaten by an even bigger vagina monster thing. And
that's funny because it's actually what Candace called it.
It is a vagina monster.
Oh, he's running away from the vagina monster now.
It is.
Like, wow.
Here, I'll bring it up. I need to show it to you now to
I don't know if we need to see it, really.
I think you do. It's well,
it looks
we don't
like
have
walking wet. It looks like a walking wet pepperoni.
It's here. Okay. This thing comes.
Oh, that's the wood.
And then here it comes. This is so Star Trek.
Star Trek at all.
Just like running away from things. It gets it here, right? And then it looks at here. Look at this. Here it is. There it is. It is a vagina monster.
You don't want that anywhere near you.
Yeah, I don't know what vaginas you've been around, Dave, but I wouldn't go back.
How many times did the Enterprise pass a planet?
Well, you tell them to get to a doctor. There's something wrong.
How many times did the Enterprise pass a planet and they were like, yeah, there's a race of giant vagina monsters, but, we're just going to leave them alone. That's a planet we don't really want to mess with. That never happens in Star Trek. Every planet has, like, people on it, and it's, like, more of a social show.
Does anybody else here find it very interesting that the escape pods don't have weapons in them?
Yeah. I think it's
that would be
also
kind of a normal
that
thing.
The planet they chose to drop him on is also the planet that Spock and Scotty just happened.
Not
to be
only
on.
that, and he happens to be on the right side of that planet, and he happens to be within walking distance of it.
Yeah, 14 kilometers of that planet. Yeah.
Yeah, 14 kilometers, and he happens to get attacked by a animal who then happens to get attacked by a vagina animal, and then they fall down a hill. He ends up getting saved in a cave by the Spock.
By old Spock.
By
Spock
old
Prime.
Spock. Yeah, like this is just convenience.
Leonard Nimoy is really good in like the few scenes Leonard Nimoy's in this movie. Like he's he's better. He overshadows Quinto's Spock majorly. And just even when Leonard Nimoy's talking about their friendship, like this friendship that will come to define you both in ways you can't realize, and you're just like, fuck.
But that's from Nimoy's interpretation.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's amazing, and you're like, yes,
but he's lying to him the whole time.
Why?
Because in reality, you don't know that.
No,
Nimoy knows it because Nimoy is part of the other timeline.
Oh, you think it's wrong for Nimoy to imply that they'll have the same dynamic?
Yeah, because they're not.
They're not the same people.
Gonna. No.
Not exactly. They are the same people, but they're not. They had different lives. And I just for me, it's a nice little homage back to everything we just watched, right? Like, the original series and Spock kind of reflecting on that. And it's, I think this was supposed to be a passing of the torch to this new crew, kind of cutting out the next gen because Kirk had passed it to Picard, but Picard never really passed it on to anybody else. And we get this reboot instead. With Spock coming in and tying these universes together. The mind meld sequence where we get the whole backstory of what happened, that we find out Romulus was destroyed in the main timeline, which, as we know, was really explored in Star Trek Picard, for better or worse.
Yeah.
And a lot of big things happen throughout we learn throughout this, and sort of what allowed things to come as they are. And then they set out to find the base. They happen to find Scotty, coincidentally, and they're able to get off the planet, and Scotty and Kirk go to the ship. I know I kind of went really quick there, but we kind of really talked about Scotty, his performance, his version.
I don't think we need to rehash it.
What about Scotty's little sidekick thing he's got?
Get off that!
Get off that! Yeah,
Get off! It's not a jungle, chap.
Yeah, he's like, and he wants food because he's been abandoned on this base because he got rid of Admiral Archer's prize beagle. Is that supposed to be Jonathan Archer from Enterprise?
Yep.
Okay.
What is the story that they wrote for Scotty? I mean, it is ridiculous. I mean,
because it's very funny where he's like, oh, I was going to show people that you could transport a grapefruit from a planet to planet, which is easy, by the way. And then he was like, I was going to try to do a life form, and I tried to I do like some parts of Simon Pegg's performance. I just don't like how he's always has to be funny. I want Scotty to not always be comic relief. He can be sometimes, but with
Simon Pegg,
with always comic relief, you get Star Trek V, and it sucks.
Yeah, that's not who Scotty really is to me. Scotty's not like a guy he makes jokes, but he's not. That's not what his shtick is in life.
I was waiting for him to hit his head on a pipe somewhere.
Right. Even this idea, where Spock says, "Oh, fascinating, it's you, Montgomery Scott," and he's like, "Did you know you invented transwarp beaming?" You're like, transwarp beaming? Because we never really saw what happened to Scotty after he left the Enterprise D. Right? They gave him a shuttlecraft at the end of Relics, which is and presumably Scotty and maybe Spock met up in the 24th century at some point. McCoy was still alive. We saw too, right, in the first episode of Next Gen. It's possible these characters got back together at some point in their lives. We never saw it.
But McCoy looked like he was on his deathbed in Next Gen.
He was 137 years old in the first episode.
He wasn't going to live longer.
No, but Scotty had skipped a bunch of his aging,
because he was stuck in a transporter beam.
And Spock being half Vulcan ages slower as well. So there's a few things there, and so he shows them you haven't invented this yet, but I'm going to show it because they're like, I'm going to beam onto a ship that's at warp that's far away. He's like, it's trying to hit a bullet with a smaller bullet, blindfolded riding a horse. And then he goes, doo, doo, doo. He's like, here's your equation. He goes, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then they beam in, and then as soon as when they beam into the ship,
it's a super hard problem that they solve in 8 seconds.
Super hard problem they solve. Yeah, a really hard problem they solve very quickly, and they finally. there's lots of good moments, and Spock says I'm emotionally compromised. You need you need to be the captain, not me. And you have to make me show that I'm emotionally compromised.
Well,
so
you skipped over the best part of this though, was when the two of them were fighting.
Who?
When Spock and Kirk were
Oh,
fighting.
I haven't
on the
gotten
bridge.
there yet. I was just about to get to that. Yeah.
Well, he wasn't emotionally compromised yet. That's how they fought.
True. Yeah, like the whole emotional, like I guess like we want Kirk as captain, right? We want to get these characters sort of what they need to be, and right now the dynamic between young Spock and Kirk is not right as far as the way we think of it. So Spock's saying you need to become the captain, and in order to do this, like you have to exploit this part of it, and don't tell him about me. Don't tell he implies kind of like a Doc Brown, like if Marty met Marty or whatever, it would the universe would.
And later on they meet each other.
And they do meet each other, and they go, "It's no big deal." I just implied that just to so you guys would figure it out on his own, because Spock is kind of playing a bit of a game here. Old Spock,
Convenience.
Anyway, but as soon as they beam into the ship, right, Scotty and Kirk, Scotty beams into that water pipe, and then Kirk has to chase him around the water pipe thing for like 2 minutes, which is I think a huge waste of time, just so that Scotty can make more jokes when he gets onto the ship about, can he have a towel and, he's got water in his ears or whatever. But
he's the comic relief.
Oh, it doesn't work. It's just annoying.
He's emotion chip Data.
Yeah.
Of this movie.
Right. And then the fight between Kirk and Spock. He's like, you never even loved, because Spock doesn't tell him like, hey, my mother just died. Use that. He says, my planet just died. But that's not what Kirk does. Kirk says, you never even loved your mother. And then Spock just goes, you can't say that about Winona Ryder. And he grabs, Chris Pine and throws him.
Have you seen her in Stranger Things? What's wrong with you?
She's gonna have a big comeback in Stranger Things. You don't even know.
No, to try Ryder is a treasure. How dare you?
He was excellent in Heathers. Come on.
Beetlejuice,
all those things. Whatever. Like he's really sad about. And Winona Ryder is only 6 years older than Zachary Quinto, by the way. But it's kind of a little bit off. Yeah. And so he goes, but then it's not like he's beating the crap out of Kirk, strangling Kirk for a bit.
There's a point where you think he's going to kill him.
And they're all just watching this. And it's not until Sarek, his dad, says, Spock, like, what the heck? And he's like, oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, my dad's here.
He goes, yeah, my dad's here. My dad's mad at me about this.
Oh, man, my dad's here. I totally would have took you if my dad wasn't here.
Yeah. Like, it's just whatever. It's like, and then but this allows Kirk to take command of the ship, because Spock resigns and he goes, oh, and McCoy's like, well, now we have no first officer. And Sulu, who was present for that, says, no, he's the first officer. But wasn't he just thrown off the ship? Like, it's so weird. It's like
it's wartime, convenience.
It doesn't matter. What we need to know is Kirk's right, Spock's wrong. That they need to go after Nero. They don't rendezvous with the fleet because Earth's about to be destroyed. And they kind of come up with this plan, and I don't know what it is. I like when the
red matter, blah blah blah.
Red matter, blah blah blah. Chekhov comes up with the idea, and McCoy goes, how old are you? He goes, 17. He's like, oh, good. He's 17. I love this plan. But that's very true to McCoy.
But
McCoy's
always amazing. McCoy is amazing in this.
McCoy, because McCoy's just kind of a wet blanket sometimes, complaining about everything, always thinking he's going to die, thinking that the mission all the time. And I just it's very consistent. I just want these characters to kind of be true to who they are, right? And that's why I think we're having problems with Scotty and Spock in particular, because they're not true to who they are. Even Uhura, not really.
Uhura, I can forgive, because Uhura wasn't very important in.
And Uhura needed an update. I think if any of these characters needed an update, it was Uhura. But I don't think that Scotty needed this, and I don't think that who's the other Spock? Oh, Spock. Okay, so yeah, they come up with a plan, and they beam Spock and Kirk are starting to like each other, and they beam into the Romulan ship together after they've kind of patched this plan. A few action sequences. They find the ship. They find the jellyfish ship, and I like when they get on there and it says, "Welcome back, Ambassador Spock," and Chris Pine just goes, "Oh, that's weird. That's funny. What's going on here?" So he puts Spock in charge of the jellyfish ship to go attack the thing and to attack the Romulans, and Kirk's still fighting Nero and all that. I don't know. I'm grazing over it because it really doesn't matter.
A movie that just doesn't matter that much.
It doesn't matter. They save Pike. Like it's a cool enough like gunfight, but like what can you really say about it? Like it's
an action movie, Dave. Like that's what it is. Like
Yeah.
it's an action movie. The whole movie's an action movie.
I know, but it at least has a story. But I haven't felt like this in the movie where I get to this part of the story and I'm like, I don't even know what to really say. Like they got here and
this part of the movie began and then it ended and then we can move on.
Like even that scene where like Kirk's finding the Romulan on the ship and he's like holding him up. He's like, "What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say?" And he's like, "I got your gun." And then he shoots him.
That could be the more quintessential action movie moment. There's literally a one-liner. The guy's it's a physical confrontation between two men.
I'm surprised they didn't bring Bruce Willis in to do this scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. Like this is such a like they were leaning so hard. Like what if Captain Kirk was Han Solo, right? Is kind of what this movie is.
I think he is.
Sometimes Kirk is, but a lot of the times he's not. A lot of times he's like a womanizer. A lot of times he's like, he's multifaceted. In this movie, you're right. They just wanted to make him the action version of Kirk, which is, it's okay. If you liked Han Solo growing up, I get why you did this, but I
will go make a Star Wars movie with Han Solo and ruin that franchise. It's like
they already did.
Oh yeah, they did.
They did. They called it Solo, and it was.
They did it after this movie.
Yeah, this was how they had to make their bones.
They took your advice, Steve.
Right. Yeah, like
I
don't know.
Oh, he's almost Han Solo. We could do.
Obviously, we're not too sour overall in this movie, and there's things we all like, and there's.
It's a good action movie. Is it a good Star Trek movie? Not really.
No.
Well, even at the end, where like Kirk's like, after they kind of defeated Nero and he's being sucked into the black hole or whatever, and he's like, we're here to like aid assistance, right? And then Spock says, "No, I don't want to help this guy." Right? Like, all right, I don't want to. And he says, "I will never accept help from you." And then he's like, fire everything at them, which they actually should have been trying to get away instead because they wasted time firing.
Way
their
cooler
guns.
this way.
Way cooler. Yeah, it's way cooler. Everything's about being cooler.
It was good for the trailer. If it's good for the trailer, it's going in the movie.
That's right.
That's how these movies work, and that's
make a movie trailer, then make a movie around it.
Yeah. So like I guarantee you, like I in one of the fun facts I didn't get to read was that LeVar Burton apparently saw this movie and hated it.
Really?
A lot of Star Trek people apparently watched this movie and did not like it because they didn't appreciate the fact what Star Trek is. It's not an action movie. It's not Star Wars. It's the antithesis to it. It's yes, they both have star in the world, and there are some times when action is appropriate when you're telling a certain Star Trek story. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, Star Trek doesn't have to do that or doesn't need to do that. It's much more about like Game of Thrones, where it's a lot more like social dynamics and between cultures and people. This is a straight up action movie about revenge. I mean, that's what this is. And like you could make this movie a Star Wars movie. You could make it any Fast and Furious.
Almost all Star Trek has sort of a moral
core
question to each episode. Like they're questioning ethics and morals and what is right and what is wrong. And it's not just this. You're right. This is just an action movie about revenge.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't disagree with any of that. Like, I don't hate this. I think that this had a lot of potential. I think that there's some good things in this.
I remember seeing this movie for the first time and coming out and being excited.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
I can't wait to see what they do with this.
Right.
And then we got next week's movie.
And then
they tried to course correct for Beyond, but it was too late.
No, they didn't. They made 3 action movies in a row.
They did.
That's what they did. They set out to do, and that's fine if you want to watch Fast and Furious in space. That's what this is, and a lot of people do. I
love Fast and Furious.
Right, but I'm not clamoring to go back.
Well, the director of Star Trek Beyond is a Fast and Furious guy.
Yeah, of course, that's who they brought in.
Fast and the Furious, by the time they get to number 13, it will be in space.
Let's not forget this one is directed by
space.
I hope so.
The last one was a submarine, so.
I mean, this movie's directed by J.J. Abrams, the guy who made Mission Impossible 3, like right before this. Who made the second one? It's J.J. Abrams too. He make Into Darkness as well. I think.
Yeah, he was the director of Into Darkness.
Right. So there you go.
And the third one's Justin Lin, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you got the Fast and Furious guy literally to come in and make Fast and Furious in space. Which, Kirk's riding a motorcycle around in that movie for half the movie, and
he was riding a motorcycle in this movie too.
Yeah, and he's flying cars off friggin' cliffs for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Star Trek Into Darkness is Star Trek Beyond's all about them trying to forget Into Darkness, and they're like, what if we just pretend like Into Darkness never happened? And this is more Beyond feels like they're trying to be a sequel to the first movie, in a lot of ways. And we'll talk about it when we get to it, but like I think that this movie, it's definitely the best movie of these three. This one, and it's too bad kind of how things turned out. But I think what we also are identifying is like right from the beginning, some of the characters, some of the performances were not written well enough, or were not done well enough,
or cast,
and they don't get better in any of the other movies either.
And it doesn't get better. I love watching Chris Pine as Kirk. I love his version of Kirk. He's the best part of these movies for me. After that, like, I guess Bones, and
that's about it.
Yeah,
those two guys are good, and probably because, especially Carl Urban, and I'm guessing Chris Pine became a big fan. I'm guessing he did a lot of research on William Shatner playing Kirk. That's why his performance seems so authentic. I think both those guys cared about Star Trek, and the other people, I don't feel like I know Simon Pegg's a big fan, but like I think he even probably would agree that he probably wasn't the right guy to play Scotty.
I would hope so.
I would hope so. I would hope he would understand that.
I don't think you don't have to cast a Scottish guy.
No, he doesn't have the right like intangibles that like James Doohan brought to the character of Scotty. And some of those intangibles are like a rough, tough, rugged super genius that's like running the ship, is in the
but also a very capable Starfleet officer. And a leader, and somebody who was in command of the Enterprise when Spock and Kirk had to go on missions in the original series.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wouldn't leave this guy in charge of the ship. He's a friggin' like goofball. He's always yelling at his assistant.
All right. So Simon Pegg's character in Mission Impossible. Simon Pegg's character in Mission Impossible, is he more capable than this Scotty character? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I forget his name in the Mission Impossible movies, but is he a more capable guy?
It's a very similar character, right?
Right.
Like a really goofy smart guy or something.
He's basically playing the same character.
Like a whimsical.
His name's Benji in the Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know.
Never bothered to learn his character's name.
I don't know. You go back and watch some of those original series episodes with Scotty, especially. He's not like a goofball, like almost at all. Like he's more of a goofball in the movies.
Yes.
That's because like I don't know, like certain moments are played for humor, and like especially in like Voyage Home, and he's a comedic actor. He's kind of like a Robin Williams, where he has that ability, right? Like to do voices, and so he has that about him. But he also has like this like rough Canadian veteran guy who's also who he is, right? So
all those guys did, right? Like I think like DeForest Kelley and James Doohan, those two older guys on the original cast, like those two guys fought in World War II, man. They had a different feel to them, right?
Yeah,
like
Gene Roddenberry was in World War II. I mean,
but I don't think Shatner was, right? He was too young, and Nimoy wasn't either. They're both too young for that. But the other guys were, and like I don't know, there was just something about like that old. I don't know. I don't want a cowboy look, but they had like a veteran feel to them.
It was kind of cowboy. Like DeForest Kelley was famous for westerns before he did Star Trek.
Yeah, James Doohan not really, but like James Doohan also had that kind of feel, right? Like I smoke cigarettes, man, and I've seen some stuff.
I've seen some shit.
Yeah, well, for sure. But like also like James Doohan was also like. He was a soldier, and like that definitely affected his performance. DeForest Kelley, did you know that Gary Sinise was considered to play him in this movie because he looks so much
instead of Carl Urban?
Instead of Carl Urban, because because Gary Sinise looks so much like DeForest Kelley. At least that's what it said in the fun fact.
Yeah, but he would have been too old for Chris Pine's Kirk.
Well, I mean then they would have had to readjust. Why? DeForest Kelley's an old man in season 1, Dave. I mean, like
he only looks like an old man. He's only like 40 something in season 1.
But like how old's Kirk? He's like 30 something, right?
36, 37, my age.
We should rate
Right.
this movie now.
We should.
I agree.
Right.
Yeah. No, I got all kinds of ideas. I got so many Star Trek ideas. Like for shows. Jeff and I were talking the other night. We're like, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? Like, get rid of Kurtzman. Kurtzman, one of the co-writers of this movie, was now in charge of all Star Trek. You can thank Discovery to him. You can thank whatever you don't like about Star Trek Picard, you owe to him. Even Star Trek Beyond, because after this movie, because this movie was fairly successful, and people like us were coming out going, not bad, got potential, right? Somehow Kurtzman, because Abrams, he fucked off to go do Star Wars, right? So they put Kurtzman in charge of everything, and has been ever since, and he's ruining Star Trek. This guy, and they need to get him out.
I got a fun fact for you guys that is related to Sulu. Listen to this one. The Korean-American actor John Cho was initially uncertain about being cast as Japanese-American officer Hikaru Sulu, but George Takei, who played Sulu on Star Trek, encouraged him to take the role, as Sulu was a character who represented all of Asia.
Well, in a way,
I
that's
don't
true,
even know. That's not even George Takei's thing to say. In my opinion, who's he to tell? How does he know that he was there to represent all of Asia or not? Did Gene Roddenberry tell him?
Fuck?
That's amazing. I'm fine with that.
Well, and then George Takei was pissed off years later because in Star Trek Beyond they show Sulu as being gay, that's John Cho version of Sulu as being gay, because George Takei is gay, and George Takei is like, no, I always played Sulu as a straight guy, right? So I don't like that you.
Yeah, but he wears a cape, Dave. I mean,
You can't watch Edge Home and say that he played that straight. There's no way. He's got a cape on. He's hitting on that guy for a free helicopter.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Okay.
from that helicopter. That's
Yeah.
There was a joystick joke that just didn't end up
And
making
he
it into the
got
movie.
a free helicopter. There you go.
Yeah, he wasn't with that.
He wanted to ask him about his thrustmaster.
What he had no. He couldn't. Yeah. What did he have to do to negotiate?
You wanted to know what model of the thrust.
He probably had to wipe off the thrustmaster.
Because he uses the helicopter to.
Anyway, let's rate this damn movie because this is taking forever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, so I think we're pretty much wrapped up on this one. He gets promoted to captain. We get the final we get the scene between Quinto and Nimoy, which is I think is fine. It's a nice scene. It's a little, that's your new passing of the torch. And then, then Kirk gets promoted right to captain. He goes right from cadet right up to captain, skips all the other ranks. And now he's in charge of because Pike has been promoted to admiral. So he's not, and he gives him the relief. And now the movie ends with Chris Pine in the gold shirt now, which I think Chris Pine looked better in just the black shirt, but he's now the captain. And now they're ready to kind of go off and do their thing. And the movie's over. So, and I was excited. Like we all said, I was pumped for Star Trek Into Darkness after this movie. Yeah, and I was so
and then I saw it.
Oh my god!
But anyway, that's next week.
That's next week, and I will.
We mustn't dwell on next week.
No, because next week's the roughest week here on Live Long and Podcast, as we will be doing the worst Deep Space Nine episode ever. We're doing one of the worst original series episodes ever, and we're also doing Star Trek Into Darkness. Next week is Star Trek.
And for more, Admiral.
Yeah, it's called The Voyage or something. It's from season 1 of Deep Space Nine. It's episode 10 we're doing. Get ready for that on Tuesday, and then
that's one where they're dancing in the maze with the checkerboard,
doing the hopscotch. And all that.
You gotta do it in the right order and say the rhyme.
I'm not on that episode at all. Thank God.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. And then we're doing the space hippie one on the original series, which is going to be called "It's the Way to Eden." It's called.
I gotta stop committing to this stuff.
Yeah, I know. Okay, and so we're doing that next week. I think that's it.
Ratings.
Oh, sorry guys, I forgot about the ratings. Let's do that.
Jody's only said it 8
He's closing.
times.
He's closing the show, and I'm like, do you think you can do the fucking ratings? That's what we're doing this for.
Is that what you were saying? I thought you said you wanted to write the movie.
No.
Rate
Yeah,
it.
can we just write this movie? I was like, you want to write a movie?
No.
What? That doesn't even make sense, Dave. I don't know why you would assume that that's what
I thought he wanted to write a movie. I'm giving this movie an 8, by the way.
An 8?
Yeah.
An 8?
You think this movie is is the same level of good as Star Trek Generations?
It's about the same, right? Seven. Let's give it a 7.5. I'm going to downgrade that. Okay. So Jane's not here, so we'll get her rating later.
Can't be worse than 1.5. I'm going to give it a 6.9.
6.9.
You can't quite commit to a 7?
No, it doesn't deserve a 7.
Okay, and Mom's not here. And Jody.
I gotta give it a 7. I think it does deserve a 7. There's a lot of good in this movie.
I think I'm going to be pretty generous to this movie. I'm going to give it an 8.
Wow.
I was really excited after I watched this movie. I really thought it was good.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us down to about a 7.4 among our group here, and it has a 7.9 on IMDb, so pretty close to the 8 rating I had initially. A 94% Rotten Tomatoes score for the critics, and an audience score of 91%. Wow. So this
clearly they liked it better than we did.
It was a good start.
Yeah, so it comes out at 7.6.
It just never followed through.
Which puts it, so just in terms of how much we enjoyed it, this movie falls pretty high up in the ranks. Like, we don't like it. We like it just slightly less than Wrath of Khan.
This is the high school version of reboots. It starts off good, but it just ends too quickly.
And we'll see how the next couple of movies play out here. As we finish out the Chris Pine movies next.
It's very similar to Wrath of Khan. It's the start of a franchise of a 3 set of movies that it's probably the best of the 3. I don't know. I like Voyage Home the most, but some people don't like that movie. They think it's stupid. They think it's a stupid comedy. It's a comedy movie.
I think it's stupid, and I love it.
Yeah,
right. I agree. I have the same feeling. But some people
it can be both. It can be both.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And some people would think that the first movie is the best one, like kind of Dave was saying with this movie. And you might be right. They should have done a comedy for the 3rd movie in this series of trilogy. That Star Trek Beyond should have been a comedy.
Yeah, especially after Into Darkness.
It wasn't?
Not intentionally.
It was laughable, but
laughable.
See, I always get those confused.
All right, when we get to Idris Elba. Oh man, we'll talk. All right. So that's it for. I think we can wrap up. We can kind of close the books on Star Trek 2009. Pretty good. Going a lot better. And we'll talk about the potential being wasted over the next 2 weeks. Any final thoughts, guys?
Insurrection.
Better than Insurrection. Okay, granted, it is better than Insurrection, and it's better than Nemesis.
Yes.
Both of those things.
I agree.
Any final thoughts? Anything? We're all good?
No.
Okay. No. All right. All right. Thank you all. Thank all of you for joining us today on the panel. Great opinions and discussion. Out there on the audience side, hey, make sure to subscribe to us on Facebook, YouTube. Listen to us on the audio versions wherever you listen to your podcast. We already mentioned Deep Space Nine on Tuesdays, original series on Thursdays. Check out our other channels. We got Super Mater Brothers podcasting, where we do a lot of different TV shows. We also have Trivial Debates, where we post once a month, which is a kind of a debate show with our friends where we all do battle in multiple categories. So check that out. And have a great day and night, everybody, and just stay safe out there and stay healthy. And we'll be back next week for Star Trek Into Darkness, I guess. All right. Bye.